Humans drink cow milk. Humans drink goat milk. Plenty of people drink sheep milk. We've even figured out how to milk camels, yaks, water buffalo, and reindeer. So here's a genuinely strange question nobody ever asks. Why not pigs? Pigs are mammals. Every mother pig produces milk, and that milk contains fat, protein, sugar, basically the same core ingredients you'd find in any mammal's milk. So what's actually stopping us? Why did humans look at a cow and immediately think, yes, that, and then look at a pig and somehow land on absolutely not? The answer has almost nothing to do with whether pig milk is safe or edible. It has everything to do with the pig itself. Let's start with the obvious fact. Pigs absolutely produce milk. A mother pig, called a sow, can produce a genuinely impressive volume for her piglets. The problem isn't production, the problem is access. Think about how a cow's udder works. A cow has one large centralized udder with 4 accessible teats. You can stand beside her, attach a milking machine, and collect liters of milk in a single sitting. It's a simple, efficient system built for exactly this kind of extraction. A sow's anatomy is built completely differently. Instead of one centralized udder, she has a long row of small mammary glands running along both sides of her underside, sometimes a dozen or more individual outlets rather than one collection point. There's no single place to attach anything. Here's the part that really breaks the whole idea, though. A sow's milk isn't just sitting there waiting to be collected the way a cow's is. Milk release in pigs is triggered by active nursing. Piglets physically stimulate specific glands, and the sow responds with short, rapid bursts of milk letdown, sometimes lasting less than a minute at a time. The entire system evolved around one specific scenario: a whole litter of hungry piglets nursing simultaneously, each one claiming a specific teat and competing for position. It was never built around a human standing calmly beside her with a bucket. For a farmer trying to actually collect milk, that's close to a nightmare. There's no steady, predictable flow to tap into, just short, unpredictable bursts triggered by piglets doing something a milking machine simply can't replicate. Suppose you got creative and tried anyway, maybe with specialized equipment designed to mimic a nursing piglet. You'd immediately run into a second entirely separate problem: quantity. A dairy cow produces dramatically more milk than her calf actually needs. That surplus is precisely what humans have spent thousands of years breeding for and collecting. Modern dairy cows have been selectively bred, generation after generation, specifically to maximize that excess. Pigs don't work that way at all. A sow's milk production is tightly calibrated to match her litter, and pig litters are large, often 10 or more piglets at once. Those piglets are remarkably efficient at consuming essentially everything their mother produces. There's no meaningful leftover pool sitting around waiting for a human to collect. The math simply doesn't leave much of a surplus to work with, and that changes the entire economic calculation. To really understand why pigs lost this particular competition, it helps to look at exactly why cows won it so completely. Cows check nearly every box you'd want in a dairy animal. They're large. They're relatively calm and easy to manage in groups. They can survive comfortably on grass and other cheap, fibrous plant matter humans can't eat themselves. Their udders are conveniently accessible, and critically, they produce enormous quantities of milk well beyond what their calves require. But there's one advantage that matters more than almost anything else on that list. You don't have to kill a cow to get milk from her. You can milk the same cow every single day for months. She can go on to produce another calf, and the entire renewable cycle simply continues. That turns one animal into an ongoing, repeatable food source rather than a one-time resource. It's an extraordinarily efficient deal, and it's the foundation the entire global dairy industry was eventually built on. Now, try running that same scenario with a pig. Pigs are intelligent, strong, fast-moving, and genuinely uninterested in cooperating with a human's daily milking schedule. A sow protecting a litter of piglets can become aggressive and genuinely dangerous if she feels threatened or stressed. And even in a best-case scenario where you successfully extracted some milk, you'd still end up with a fraction of what a single dairy cow provides on an ordinary day. At that point, a farmer is left asking one simple, practical question: why bother? And historically, humans have consistently been very good at answering exactly that kind of question. We didn't just ask, can this animal technically produce food? We asked, can we produce this specific food cheaply, reliably, and at real scale? That's precisely the question pigs lose on every single time. There's also a genuinely interesting biological angle worth covering, because milk composition varies meaningfully between species, and pig milk in particular was never built with human convenience in mind. Pig milk tends to run notably incredibly rich in both fat and protein, considerably richer than cow milk in several respects. That's not an accident. Piglets grow at an extremely fast rate and need to reach a substantial size quickly, so their mother's milk is essentially engineered by evolution to deliver concentrated growth fuel as efficiently as possible. None of this makes pig milk unsafe or somehow poisonous to drink. It's simply different, shaped by a completely different growth timeline than what cow milk was ever optimized around. The core issue was never the milk's composition, it was always about whether humans could actually get their hands on a meaningful amount of it in the first place. Here's something genuinely important to understand about why we drink cow milk at all. It was never because cow milk was somehow biologically designed with humans specifically in mind. We drink it because humans developed the culture, tools, and technology needed to exploit cattle specifically, and did so consistently across thousands of years of domestication. Once that entire system existed and stabilized, everything else got built directly on top of it. Cheese, butter, yogurt, cream, milk powder, whey, an enormous interconnected web of products, all constructed around one specific animal's milk. The dairy industry that resulted became genuinely massive, deeply entrenched, and extraordinarily efficient at what it does. And once an industry reaches that kind of scale, it becomes extremely difficult for a completely different animal to meaningfully compete with it, even one that technically produces usable milk. Imagine trying to build an entire global pig dairy industry completely from scratch today. You'd need specialized breeds bred specifically for milk output instead of meat, entirely new milking equipment engineered around pig anatomy, specialized handling and safety systems, dedicated processing facilities, new supply chains, and an entirely new set of consumer habits and recipes built around a product nobody currently expects to exist. And even after solving every single one of those problems, you'd still be competing directly against an already massive cattle dairy industry that already does the job efficiently. There's simply no compelling reason to make that switch. Here's where the history actually gets genuinely interesting. Humans didn't just settle on cows by accident and stop looking. Across different regions and eras, humans experimented with milking a surprisingly wide range of animals. Cattle, goats, sheep, camels, water buffalo, yaks, horses, reindeer, donkeys, even certain animals in more localized or unusual circumstances. So why did some of these animals succeed as dairy animals while pigs specifically never did? Because domestication was never a random process. Humans have consistently favored animals that share a specific combination of traits: manageable temperament, reliable reproduction, a tendency to live comfortably in groups, the ability to survive on relatively cheap food, and a general willingness to provide something useful without constantly threatening the person trying to collect it. Cows score extremely well across every single one of those categories. So do goats and sheep, which is exactly why they became widespread secondary dairy animals across different regions of the world. Pigs score brilliantly as meat animals, genuinely one of the most efficient meat sources humans have ever farmed, but they score remarkably poorly as dairy candidates specifically. This reveals something genuinely interesting about domestication as a broader pattern. The animals humans ended up depending on weren't necessarily the ones with objectively the best milk in some abstract nutritional sense. They were the animals offering the best overall combination of biology and behavior for the specific job at hand. A pig can technically produce milk, but production alone was never enough. The animal also has to make that milk genuinely accessible, and that's precisely where pigs fail, decisively and repeatedly. There's also a cultural dimension worth understanding here. Once specific human communities began associating certain animals with milk production, those traditions became deeply generationally embedded. Cattle became culturally dominant dairy animals across large parts of Europe and the Mediterranean. Goats and sheep became central to dairy traditions across parts of Africa and Asia. Camels became essential dairy animals across arid regions where cattle struggled to survive at all. Communities generally didn't need access to every conceivable milk source available to them. They needed one or two genuinely reliable ones, and once a community had successfully established a working dairy tradition around a specific animal, there was very little practical incentive left to experiment further with something considerably harder to manage, like pigs. Picture an early farmer actually weighing this decision directly. There's a sow nearby currently nursing a large litter of piglets. You could spend a considerable amount of effort attempting to extract a genuinely small amount of milk from an animal actively inclined to defend her young. Or you could simply walk a short distance over to your cow and collect several liters with comparatively minimal effort. Framed that way, it was never really a difficult decision to make. So we don't drink pig milk, not because it's biologically impossible, not because it's inherently dangerous, and not because humans are somehow incapable of digesting it. We don't drink it because pigs are fundamentally terrible dairy animals. Their anatomy makes consistent milking genuinely difficult. Their milk only releases in short, unpredictable bursts triggered specifically by active nursing. Their large litters consume nearly everything they produce, leaving very little meaningful surplus behind. And on top of all of that, pigs happen to be extraordinarily valuable to humans specifically as meat animals, arguably one of the most efficient meat sources we've ever farmed, which only makes the case for turning them into dairy animals even weaker. Cows, by comparison, represent almost the exact opposite combination of traits. Genuinely easy to handle, genuinely easy to milk, naturally producing far more than their calves require, calm enough to manage safely in groups, and fully capable of being milked repeatedly across months at a time without ever needing to be slaughtered for the privilege. So humans didn't examine every mammal on Earth and randomly settle on cattle. Across thousands of years of trial, error, and accumulated practical experience, cows quietly turned out to be one of the best possible answers to a very specific question. The pig was never rejected as a dairy animal because its milk was somehow bad. It was rejected because the pig itself, biologically and behaviorally, was simply never built to be a dairy machine. Which is exactly why tomorrow morning when you pour milk into your coffee, you won't have to worry about a pig staring back at you from the carton. He's got considerably more important things to do, like eventually becoming breakfast himself. If this video changed how you think about where your morning milk actually comes from, hit like, subscribe for more, and let me know in the comments. Did you know pigs even made milk at all before watching this?